If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Level Up Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me, I've got Josh. Josh, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. The kids are out of school, and I don't like it. I just don't.
'Tis the time of year.
They're bugging me with all sorts of stuff, man. Like, I was here on Monday, and they interrupted me trying to do my job maybe 40 or 50 times before lunch.
Yeah, I'm down here in the basement, so my kids don't know how to open the door yet, but Hannah does knock on the door upstairs, so I hear thump, thump, thump.
Yeah.
But they don't like to come down here. There's too much stuff down here. Actually got to clean up.
Well, I was thinking maybe it would be easier on them if they had a clear understanding of what they're supposed to be doing, so they don't have to bother me with all the mundane BS and could actually just like focus on getting their stuff done for the summer.
Yeah, that's a good idea. To be fair, I don't have any idea what the heck we're doing for this podcast today. Because you said, let me sell you on it. So
yeah. So this is my segue into a thing that you don't know I'm segueing you into. Recently, the new campaign, the new TTRPG from Darrington Press was released, Daggerheart. Do you know about this, Aaron?
No.
You don't have any clue. Do you know you know what Darrington Press is, though, right? That's the
No.
Critical Role people put together.
Okay.
They've got Candela Obscura, and now they've got Daggerheart. And I think they've got some like board games and stuff too that they've released. So Daggerheart is their new TTRPG, and I've been seeing a whole bunch of stuff online about it. I've got all sorts of PDFs that I've been looking through. I may have convinced my wife to let me buy a brand new laser printer so I could print out some of the stuff because the books are hard to find. But I was looking through all this stuff, and one thing stood out really bright and bold from the whole bit and pieces, which is something called campaign frames. And I'd like to sell you on a campaign frame, or at least the concept of campaign frames. Little background on Daggerheart, and then we will not have to talk about it again, because I haven't played it yet. I've seen it. I know that people have played it and done play tests and done even entire campaigns at this point through playtesting and pre-release and stuff like that. And there have been some complaints about balance issues or the way that armor works. And between the time playtesting happened and it was released, everybody's complaints seem to have been addressed. So, I mean, I'm very happy that places like Darrington Press actually like take into consideration, feedback from players. But I don't see any issue with feedback on these campaign frames, and I'd like to tell you why.
Why?
Campaign frames are basically mission statements for a campaign. They lay out everything that a player and a GM would need to know in order to run a campaign before you even get into the story.
Okay.
Are you interested? It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me more.
So, what I heard when I first heard campaign frames was that they were the additional actions and mechanics and stuff that would be unique to a campaign. So I was thinking, oh, I've got a desert campaign. These would be, like desert style actions or, dealing with the heat or the sand. You've got trying to find water and stuff like that. And these are all the rules that would go into that. But when I pulled it up, because I thought, hey, that's a cool, interesting thing I could work with. When I pulled it up, it was quite a bit more. It is a full, I don't know, like a pitch deck, like a full like outline and details of everything from the pitch, like what the basics of the campaign are going to be,
Okay.
the tone, the themes, where you got your ideas from, the kind of things that players are supposed to be thinking about when they create their characters, the ideas and motivation the game master is supposed to be thinking of when he runs the campaign, and all of the little details to, the way the characters, the different races or cultures or classes are interacting with the campaign, to, yes, indeed, unique mechanics. And it's all bundled up together into one document that, if I'm reading this right, you can just hand to your players as like a preview to session 0.
So it's like I was about to say it sounds a lot like a session 0, like everything that you sort of discuss in a session 0. So what this is to give your players, like, here's the missive, come to session 0 ready to make this character.
Here's the missive. And yeah, here's the rules by which you can then come to session 0 and create a character. And a lot of the stuff that's in here is stuff that I've done before. And I mean, you may have done this as well. I had a discussion with the guys I game with on Tuesdays about more character-driven roleplay. And while a lot of our games have been fairly hack and slash with a little bit of character roleplay, a lot of comedy, they were interested in doing a more character-centric story, or having a story more character-centric. And we got into discussion about some of the rules that you put out beforehand to sort of enhance those characters, and a lot of that is something that goes into a campaign frame. One of the rules that I've used before is every character comes to the table with a pre-built-in connection to another character.
Okay.
You've got 2 guys come to the table. They're cousins, or they work together in a job, or they were soldiers together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has a connection to somebody else at the table. And it's a lot easier to start a group where people know each other and have sort of a shared history. I've also done the, you write me a short backstory, because you're level 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you right now that from your backstory, these are the things that you believe to be true. Not everything in that backstory may be true. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what you remember, this is what you were told, but it may not actually be what happened.
Okay.
To give people a chance to, like, they come to the table and all their family is dead, and their parents are dead, and their siblings are dead, and their best friend's dog died. And they come to the table and find out, no, the dog's fine. They just didn't know. Right?
Okay.
And these are the sort of things that you can have in there in sort of the campaign details. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, just the way it starts, the first 4 items in a campaign frame is your pitch, which is, your paragraph or 2 to lay your story idea.
Okay.
Quick little blurb like, hey, I'm planning on running a story. This is what's going to be, from 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a tone, which is just a couple of descriptive words. Like, this is adventure, this is noir, this is murder mystery, gritty realism, Comic Sans, unicorns, and bubblegum.
Okay.
Theme, more descriptive, like sentences or phrases like, dog eat dog world, or only the fluffiest survive, or whatever it is. What sort of themes you'll be exploring? We've talked about themes on this podcast before, as great ways to sort of develop your stories and to add information to it. Start adding your themes there. Boom, done. And then the last part is touchstones. Oh my God, I love this. Touchstones are, what media influence this story.
Okay.
So you come into it, you're like, okay, well, I'm writing a gritty noir mystery set in an urban sprawl. So my touchstones are going to be Maltese Falcon with a little bit of Blade Runner, maybe To Have and Have Not, with maybe some I don't know, some Chinatown thrown in for fun.
So campaign frames are effectively an outline for you to create your story.
And
then to be able to pitch it easily.
Yeah. It's a great way to just start I'd like to tell this sort of story. And then it gives you, after those first 4, you can get a lot more in depth. But I'm thinking even for short stories, like a one shot, or even like a campaign that's only a month or so, you don't need to go into all the rest of the stuff. Just those first 4 pieces gives you a great outline to start.
Okay.
Right? Those campaigns that are 6 to 9 months or a year or so, yeah, fill out the whole thing. Really go for it. Because after you get past touchstones, you get sort of an overview, which is history of the area, details about what's currently going on, current events, most recent history, common terms. You've told that game where you've got a little bit of history for the area or for what's going on, and you're spending every third game refreshing people on the history of the area so they know what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Built into the document. You just give them the document before they create the characters. They've got a built-in history they can read. I mean, your players aren't going to read it, but that's them. That's on them. You've already handed it out. You don't have to tell it again. But beyond that, then you can go into campaign-specific details. You can be I'm bringing these campaign frames up because I don't think that they need to be specifically part of the Daggerheart system. I think they work for every system out there because they're a way to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
So this campaign-specific details in Daggerheart, they're here's your communities and your I had what the actual names of some of these things are. I don't have the Daggerheart book, so I can't look it up. It's fine. Instead of doing races, classes, and backgrounds, they've got communities, classes, and heritage or something. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. You just, let's say you're having a campaign in, cyberpunk, right? You could list out the different classes and the different backgrounds and give a little explanation of how does this background, how does this class fit into the campaign? What's currently going on with them in this environment, right? And so you can have a little bit of detail if somebody wants to play, a rocker boy, but the place you're going in is, say, North Detroit in 2077. Well, what sort of music is being played in Detroit in 2077?
Mm-hmm.
What is the rocker boy scene like? What sort of bands might they encounter? Right? What sort of instruments are they even playing up there at this point? And so that sort of thing would give your player a little bit of background and something to work off of to build a backstory, to build a more uniquely suited character for the environment. They don't have to. They could be like, hey, I know we're in North Detroit and they're only playing sousaphones, disco sousaphones in Northern Detroit in 2077. But, I'd like to bring in my reggae harmonica from my time in Long Beach. And that's the thing I'm going to do now. And that's perfectly valid, but it gives people a background and understanding of how those classes and characters work.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got like a D&D setting, you could have, the different races, species. Now with the new player's handbook, they're species. You could have your backgrounds. You could have your classes be like, if you wanted to do a Feywild campaign, you might have, it's more common for you to have an Archfey warlock than a Great Old One, since you're in the Feywild.
Mm-hmm.
As far as paladins go, you might. These are the gods that you might be actually invested in, because these are the ones that are going to respond to you while you're here, right?
Oh, yeah. See, it's good guidance for a player on the mix of how your game's going to be, so you can put things together that make sense for the setting.
Exactly. Gives them background. It gives them guidance. Gives them some detail. And I think all of this together gives you a really great place to start that character creation, that session 0. Like, okay, you guys have had this. Let's start putting these things together. And that's where the next thing is the player principles, which is like not just like what your goals are supposed to be, or what you as a player are trying to reach for, like for the story. That's sort of secondary here. This is more of, as a player, this is what you should be thinking about when you're creating characters.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These are the sort of characters that are going to fit into this campaign. Like when we talk about stop making lone wolf mix single guy who's dark McStabby, sits off in the corner, doesn't talk to anybody. Not a useful character. That's just like a number 1 on those player principles. Don't make dark McStabby lone wolf McSingle guy.
Or
Not
fighter Fightington from the Land of Fightor.
You know what? I could probably work with that, as long as he works with a group. Right? Like Dave Smith, fighter Fightington from Fighter Tour. Blandy McBland. Yeah. But you can work with them if they've got like a reason to be in a group. And that's what your player principles are. Like, these people are coming together for this reason. In my desert campaign, this would be where I put in all of my players. The one from a couple years ago was all of my players are joining the guard. And that was how the campaign started. So all the players needed to come to the table with a connection to another player and a reason why they were joining the guard. And because I had those things, that's part of those details there, that gave the players a starting point for the backstory, that gave them an in and allowed me to tie in story beats to it.
Yeah, no, again, I totally get it. I mean, again, it sounds like this is sort of like the GM prep work to get into your session 0. So that way your players have a smooth session 0. Your questions are answered on the sheet. Follow the sheet and generate your character. And these sort of give you the guidelines to do so. So it's a supplement for your session 0, not necessarily a template for your game.
Yeah. It's more than just a session 0 supplement, though. It is also like a mission statement for the campaign.
I mean, I don't say it's your elevator pitch, but it's not even quite your elevator pitch because you're the GM, so the players are basically stuck to your whims. They're going to do whatever you want, but it's a good way of it's a good way of presenting to your players, the rules of this game. It's a good cheat sheet into that concept of the rules of the game. A quick little brief connection to history, and it helps guide the players in a way that is going to make sure that they I guess it's like a good tool for taking your game off the ground. I don't know how far it takes you later on in the game, but it's certainly getting from inception of a game to playing a game. This sounds like the type of tool or a thing that you can put in your toolbox to get you to like playing a game, or at least getting you to design a game. Like, again, this is like, we use our little template for the let's make a one shot thing, to get us to, to be able to start a game up, but it doesn't talk about the composition of characters and stuff. And if you wanted to do a one shot, but let players build like their own characters, this would be a great supplement to have, because it helps the characters be able to make it helps players be able to make characters quickly.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to spend a lot of time doing that action, but then even in a longer game, this helps give you more detail so you can make meaningful characters that are going to have more impact on the world. I think the thing that I like about it is that it highlights special. It helps cover your bases of the players not needing to ask you the questions about what's going to happen in the session zero. It's already pretty much laid out. It also highlights like, oh, these are the skills that you probably will find useful, or, making characters that are along these lines will be more useful in the game than making like the total like opposite antithesis type character. Like, you have your people keep making the same character over and over again, that they're hard to fit into a game. This helps kind of identify good areas to be able to fit your character into the game. So even if you make that person, at least now they can be sort of geared towards the overall goal of the game.
Yeah. Well, and I think that one of my issues with some of the games that I've run with various groups is that you have people that come in there looking to role play, but you also have people in there looking to win.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come into a tabletop game looking to win, you tend to focus on like min-maxing a character. What's the most effective play style? Who can deal the most damage? Who can survive the best? Who's going to be the most used to a party? And you're looking at mechanics, not looking at character. And
Okay.
with the recent changes to Dungeons and Dragons, and with the Daggerheart system, and with some of these other systems, I'm seeing a lot of separation between who a character is and what a character is, like what a character does. And I think that by unmarrying those things in these campaigns, just because you're a wizard doesn't necessarily mean, you're the smartest guy who can solve all the problems all the time. You've got a sorcerer who's a face, or whatever, a rogue is a sneaky guy. Yeah, some of those things still exist because of skills, but looking at backgrounds, and especially with the new Dungeons and Dragons, where they tie the background gives you your point spread, gives you your feat, gives you some details and stuff like that. That can lead to a much more dynamic character. That's a character rather than just a set of numbers to go and roll dice with. And I think having a campaign frame that touches on this is what this sort of class is thought of in this area, and here's what this species is thought of in this area, or what people who are this species are doing here's what sort of principles we'd want you to bring to the table, allows the players to create more dynamic characters that are going to fit into your longer games better and your shorter games just at all, right? So you're not just, okay, I'm going to run a story and you guys are just there. And I know that I've had a number of little campaigns, short campaigns, where that's just what happened, is that those characters, they exist in the story, but they are not part of the story.
Again, like I see your point, and as you bring that up here, I guess the whole point of the podcast in general, like if you go back all the way to the inception of this podcast with me and Jared running it, now me and Josh doing the podcast here, the idea behind it was to give players and GMs the tools to be able to get past that friction state. Okay, most GMs who start gaming are going to be like, here's a setting or an idea I have. I'm just going to drop whatever players I want to. Like, how many times have you been part of a game where the GM says, make whatever you want to be? And then you have all these, you have somebody playing a kettle, you have somebody playing a dog, you have somebody playing a sousaphone, and you're like, I can't do anything with this.
Sir Bear Barrington. Yeah. And like, there is a time and a place for those sort of campaigns and those sort of games. And I really enjoy those. Those are a great palate cleanser, just like a good fun time to get back to, where you can just play your wacky off the wall characters. Like, I'm a monk that speaks gate. And it's just a good time. But if you want to tell a meaningful story and have like emotional investment or character depth or growth, there needs to be some sort of foundation of understanding between you and your players of how that's going to work and what's going to be expected. It does not mean that you will be playing the characters I tell you to, and here's the backstories I give you, because your players should still have agency.
Yes, it means that your player could play a kettle and the other player could be playing a paladin of paladinness. Okay. And you're like, why would this paladin team up with this inanimate object that somebody's playing in my game? Well, if and only if you follow these rules. How does the paladin connect to the kettle? The kettle connect to the paladin? Well, the paladin makes tea in it every day.
And uses it as part of the ritual to worship his god, and it became sentient because of such? Yeah, okay.
Okay. At least you're following the guidelines now. Okay. Now, whether or not I think that that's a good character choice, and generally probably speaking within campaign frames, obviously I'm being super facetious about this here, but yeah, no, you're going to tell your player you're not playing a freaking kettle.
I'm not saying you should let everything go through. In fact, I'm really like, I like the idea of like, here's what we're going to allow, here's what we're not going to allow. And you could part of that specific details say like, hey, I know people like playing paladins, but the campaign I'm doing, they're outlawed. Like, because of a specific storyline reason. I don't want to have that. Or
yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why you may want to include or not include a class or something like that within your game, or why you need to have the players be able to, speak Spanish or something like that. I mean, like, there's a lot of reasons why you might need that as part of your game, and it is imperative that you lay that out. That's like the whole point of the session 0 is to lay that out, and then this here being a supplement onto that, and then even a supplement onto your overall game, just helps you find the boundaries of what you can push within the game, and it helps you be able to say like, somebody creates a character, come back to you and they say, well, okay, well, you said I couldn't be a kettle, but could I be a sousaphone? And you go like, no. We clearly, these are the guides for which to make your character. I'm not trying to restrict you, but can we perhaps get off the inanimate object train and get into, like an actual character?
Yeah. And I think having these guidelines in place, written down for the setting, for the world, for the story that you're going to tell, are going to be really useful for. It doesn't have to be for just this one story, right? You can set up a campaign frame and then reuse it as your setting for another campaign. And you've got like, here, I'm telling it in the same world. Right.
Interesting. Yeah. So you sort of a template or an outline for what the world is, and then your expectations for the characters around that in this setting of the world. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, that's an interesting thing. So it's another supplement to help you get to like the next step within a longer set of series of games or something like that. Yeah. It also helps you get back to like, if you want to tell like a one shot or something within the world, you have a lot of background that's already built up. So it's sort of like you're building a portfolio of your world.
Precisely. And it gives you some real specific details about, the campaign specific, the characters, the races, the classes, what's expected of people, the history of the area. And then you can just update like, okay, well, we did, the dark, gritty realism murder mystery here before, but this time we're going to run a tea shop and we're going to put on a musical with the local theater company. And that's going to be our one shot. But same world, right? It's just got a different tone. So like the history is still there and you don't have to rewrite everything, but you can do that. And I thought that this would also be really nice for game masters that don't realize they're telling the same story every time.
Oh, yeah, it's a good point. And then you can always see it sort of on paper. And then you can see like, oh, back. This is the same sort of thing I always do.
It's got the same tone and the same touchstones as the last three things I wrote. Maybe I should tell a different story.
It's a good point.
I mean, because you'd have it write down, because you have to write down like, hey, what are my inspirations for this story? Am I always going back to the same well?
Yeah. No, I see it. I get it. Yeah.
And I mean, we're here to level up your gaming podcast.
We are trying to talk about different ways to execute a story. Also, when we flex trying to do let's make a one shot, we're not trying to make them all the same one shot.
No, some of them are gritty and some of them are funny and some of them are fantastical and some of them are grounded. And it's important that you have a mix like that in the stories that you tell, the stories that you bring to your players, because it makes you a better storyteller. There's that whole I don't fear the man that is, practiced 1,000 punches one time. I fear the man that's practiced one punch 1,000 times. But if you tell the same story 1,000 times, yeah, you probably have gotten that right. But your players are tired of that story.
Yes, they're probably looking for something more fresh.
Yeah. You may be really good at that one story. And if you tell the same story 1,000 times, but change out your players every time, great. You're going to be really good at that story. But your players are going to be bored if it's the same ones. So try different things, find things that work, find new things, and then incorporate stuff that works into your other stories. And having a campaign frame that like, here's the tone that I'm going for with this story. Here's the touchstones that I'm working with on this story. Okay, I've tried something different. I've pulled from different sources. Make sure that they are those sources. Make sure that these changes are happening. Even if the details of the campaign, like the way the classes, the races, player expectations are the same, even if you're doing it in the same world, you can try and tell different stories, and you'll know that you're telling different stories.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think this is it's a good tool to add to the toolbox for sure. And again, it helps you cover that and create the boundaries of your game and be able to have the players just really be connected to the game.
Now, we only brought it up to the player principles. There are like 3 or 4 extra things that are on in the book for campaign frames. After player principles, it says GM principles. So player principles, like I said, are what the players should be thinking about when they're creating characters, how they're going to be interacting with each other, and so on and so forth. The GM principles are your notes, or whoever's notes that wrote the campaign frame, what you're supposed to be doing when you tell the story. As that storyteller, as the person adjudicating this story out to your players, what should be in your head? What, not, like, here's the story beats, but here's what I want them to think about. Here's what I want to be thinking about when I'm telling the story. And if you write your story for somebody else to tell, I think this is a really great way to be like, hey, this is where I came to the story from. You don't have to. Same thing with what we're saying with the player principles and the campaign settings. These are what I'd like you to bring to the table. If you've got a compelling reason why not to try something else, by all means, let's work with it. And the same thing here is, if I write a campaign and I give it to you guys, I give it to you, Aaron, be like, here's how I came at the story. Here's what I wanted my players to experience. And you read through it, you look at it, you bring it up to your players. You're like, no, I think I should come at it from this other angle. Fine, by all means. But I think it's a really great way to think about, if I'm writing a story, this is how I'd like to tell it. Now, they have on the campaign frames also, they want to list the inciting incident. And I don't know about listing that in the document that you'd be handing over to your players. But like I said, you'd probably cut off the GM principles anyway. So maybe this last little bit is something that would be kept away from the players. But inciting incident would be, of course, how does your story start? How does your story start, Aaron?
I usually start it in the middle of the action, so I keep literally doing it in every one of our one-shot stories. Yeah. It's the best place to start a story that I've found. Again, there's a bunch of gathering types that you can do, but that one tends to work the best because it just always sort of works. It's like it's a good. If you've got no better way to do it, that's always a good way to do it. Again, you wouldn't want to give this to your players because what if the inciting incident is like theft from like the king or something like that that's supposed to kick it off, or it's supposed to be the death of an NPC very early on in like a small thing the players are doing, and what if one of your touchstones or your overviews or your player principles is that you're connected to this village of people and all that, like if you tell them
by burning to the ground,
if you tell them what's going to you're going to destroy it in the very first scene, then it makes it harder for the players to connect to it. You have to suspend a lot of disbelief to know that it's not just going to go away in the first scene.
Yeah. So, having the inciting incident in this document is a great idea for the GM, but not if you're going to be handing off to the players. That's why I say cut it off at player principles, hand that over to your players so they can come to session 0 with I've got a great idea that fits right into your campaign. And here's how, because that's what you want. You want people that are not just interested. They read the pitch. They like the idea. They read the overview, the background, the history of the area. They know the terms. They're familiar with the local street drugs and how elves are called. And the obvious racism between the different character classes, things that are important to a good story. But they don't know what you're going to be telling, and they don't know how the story is going to start off. The last thing that they have in here was unique campaign features. And this was what sold me on it in the first place before I knew any of the other stuff was in here. This was the thing that was like, oh, it's Daggerheart's got a way to specialize campaigns, give it special rules for different types of campaigns. Great. That's great. And I looked into the rest of it. I'm like, oh, the rest of this is way more useful than that. Like, this is just like sprinkles on a donut. It's nice when they're there, but if they're not there, you don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Unique campaign features, specialty rules for a campaign, any sort of changes to abilities, flavorings for spells, or whatever. Fine. A great thing to have in your story is mechanics that tie back to the story. So your players are brought back into, oh yeah, we're playing in a place. We're in a environment. We're doing a thing for a reason, because they're brought into it by the mechanics. The mechanics and the story tying together makes everything fit together in a sort of a gamified way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessary. And I think that if you are going to add unique campaign features, I think that's something that you'd probably want to spend some time thinking about to make sure that it does fit with this style of game that you're playing, that it does fit into your environment, that it does add to your story rather than just be fun features added on top.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron,
yeah,
do you know what a great way to make sure that happens is? By writing out the rest of the campaign frame so you know how the thing is supposed to work.
I was going to say by using campaign frame.
It's at the end. So you've already gone through this is how the players are supposed to be acting, and this is how the history of the place, and here's the tone of the game that I want. Oh man, that card game that I came up with while I was out sitting in a hammock with too much sun and not enough iced tea, doesn't make any sense in this gritty murder mystery noir thriller that I'm telling. That I should just toss that completely.
Again, I like it as a tool. It's very interesting. It's a good. I like the idea of being able to hand your players the guidelines for your game and the guidance for character creation, and then always sort of having that little cheat sheet to be able to return to, as you go through those first few sessions. I think it gives you a lot of it gives you a lot of things to think about. It's in 7th C. There's a 23 question prompt about how to build your character. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that in there's a bunch of other games that have prompts on how to build and structure your character.
Edge of the Galaxy, we did that in Cyberpunk. There's a whole bunch of stuff you go through when you're creating characters that sort of fits into that. In Dungeons and Dragons, they've got, the whole here's how to create a character. Same thing with Pathfinder. But I think that those are game-based rather than campaign-based. A lot of those are very functional. They're not necessarily very narrative.
Mhm.
And this takes it from that functional space. Like, okay, if I want a character that's really good at this specific skill, I should pick this race and this class and put my points into these fields.
Mhm.
This takes it into the, if I want a character that fits into the story and is going to make a meaningful difference in the campaign we're going to tell, I need to be thinking about this, this, and this. And it with any luck, it'll take your players into a place where they're going to be thinking not how do I do the most damage, or what would be fun as a character, fun as a concept to play, and more of a what would be most effective in this story, what would be interesting in this story, what would be fun to play in this setting. And I think that they're selling Daggerheart as a RP focused game system.
Mhm.
And this campaign frame, I think, really lays out that more than anything else. And it doesn't even have to be a Daggerheart thing. You can port this to anything. You could use this if you're writing yourself a novel. You'd be like, this is how I'm going to write it. This is the setting that I'm going to work with. These are the rules that I'm going to create for myself when writing a novel. And it works.
Yeah. No, I agree. Again, I think it's a great tool, and I think that's something that you should definitely consider using. And maybe I will use it myself. Probably not, but maybe I will. Josh tried to sell it on me here. I think maybe he's trying to sell it to you as well. So take a look at it. Again, the podcast here over time has sort of been what this is a good way to consolidate what we've talked about within the podcast. Okay. Like it's a good framework for being able to consolidate what we've done within the podcast. And I do like the idea of having it as like your like key record, or if you end up doing a story within the same universe or the same setting, that it's there for you to be able to reference back. It's sort of like a world atlas or something like that. You know, one of those sort of like wiki builders, but it's a little bit more. It's just easier to digest. It's much simpler in that regard. So I like that. Do you have any other thoughts on this, Josh?
I think the only thing to really like hammer home, you've said it a couple of times, and I'd like to reiterate: this does not replace a session 0. This is like a session -1, if anything.
This is a supplement for your session 0 and
Yeah.
a supplement for your game as a whole.
So when your players come to that session 0, they have an idea of how to fit into your story, your campaign better. And if you are the sort of GM that likes to incorporate backstories into your game, this is going to make it a lot easier because they're coming at it with stories that match your setting. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really nice tool for those people that are willing to use it and put the time in for it.
Mhm.
And I look forward to seeing what happens.
Yeah, no, I look forward to hearing from the listeners as well. So let us know your thoughts on the campaign frames for Daggerheart. If you use it, if you think this is a good idea for your campaign, let us know. levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. The podcast is on YouTube, so you can smash the like button there or subscribe to it there if that's your listening medium. Otherwise, find it on your favorite podcasting site, recommend it to a friend, review it, subscribe, all those good things. And that'll wrap us up for the week. So for Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.